Hello, everybody. This is Onda UNED, being part of the ICDE 2023, being done here in the very capital of Costa Rica, in the convention center. And we are very glad to have with us Stephen Murgatroyd. He is chief futurist of Contact North. And that sounds amazing. Futurist is constantly looking of what's coming in the future. And he was telling me he was the creator of the first ever fully online MBA in the world in 1994. So that's a futurist. That's a futurist. So pleasure to have you here, Mr.
It's
Stephen.
great to see you and great to be here.
Thank you very much. And definitely that's what we are going to be discussing, the future of education. So we're going to try, first of all, maybe we can discuss a little bit what you do in Contact North, which is actually, I think, one of the kind sponsors of the activity.
Yes.
And so, maybe tell us what you do.
So Contact North is based in Ontario and British Columbia, and their job is to help individuals navigate higher education, to find the courses and programs that will help them achieve their career goals or their personal goals. That's their fundamental job. But to do that, we need to create more flexible, open learning opportunities. So my job is to help instructors, policymakers, administrators imagine how they could change what they do to make everything more accessible, more open, more flexible for learners. So Ontario has 42,000 online courses right now and 2,500 online degrees, diplomas and certificates.
And that's Ontario.
That's just Ontario.
Not taking into account even Toronto.
Well, no, Toronto is
Toronto is part of
Ontario. But if you look at the country as a whole, we are actually bigger in online learning, in my view, than the United States. So Canada has been historically a real hub and powerhouse. The first version of Blackboard was created in Canada. Canada's been a pioneer of open and distance learning. I think we're going to have to stop. We're getting a signal that we need a new mic.
Oh, no.
So, we've been a powerhouse of online learning since the 1970s. We have 2 dedicated online learning universities, one in French and one in English. But we have big institutions, big universities like the University of Toronto, Laval, University of British Columbia, University of Alberta, who are significant players in distance and online learning. So we are basically encouraging, through Contact North, more and more imaginative uses of technology to enable flexible learning. And my job is to help everybody think about 2030, not just Wednesday afternoon. So what's 2030 going to look like? What's 2040 going to look like? What do we need to do now to make 2040 really great for the students coming into the system? So that's my job.
Well, that's an amazing job.
It is.
How do you do that? Like how can you systematically predict future?
No, we're not predicting the future. We're showing the patterns that the future will have to deal with, and we're looking at trends. So we're not predicting, we're saying, here are some possibilities. You may have a preferred future, but that's not the one that we all expect to happen. So let's look at a number of scenarios for different future. And the way we do that is to connect to people all over the world. So that's why there's a very big presence of Contact North here in Costa Rica. A significant group was in Dublin at Eden this year, the big European conference. And I've just been at UNESCO for a week working with senior people from around the world. So my job and my graduate students' job is to scan the future continuously. Mm-hmm. So I currently have 30 graduate students working with me, exploring these questions, particularly focused on artificial intelligence.
Yeah, one of the issues we were talking prior to the start of the broadcast was exactly about artificial intelligence. Now in the university, there's this huge discussion that since we have ChatGPT, we have to go back to doing exams the old way, writing down, because if not, everybody's going to cheat in the exams. Those sorts of conversations are there.
Yeah,
like
pathetic, isn't it? Just
It's absolutely
conversation.
pathetic.
We shouldn't even be talking about exams. We should have scrapped that. I haven't sat an exam in 30 years. Because it's a ridiculous way of trying to assess what students know, what they're capable of, and what they can do. We should stop exams altogether. And cheating has been going on since the Ming Dynasty in China. So you're not going to stop it if we continue to be stupid and set exams. What we should be doing is reimagining what assessment's for and how we do it. And we can do that with authentic assessments like project-based learning, work-integrated learning assessment, competency-based assessments, oral presentations on video from students, videoing competencies and skills in practice. There's tons of things we can do. And AI enables us to do a lot of these efficiently at scale. But we're so stuck in ways of working developed in 1625 that we're not really willing to change. And that's the big underlying issue with AI, is it challenges the business models, how we do business in the university or college or school. And this fantasy that AI will transform education is just nonsense, because governments, institutions, academic teachers, school teachers are not that willing to change radically. I'm a psychologist. I used to work in a clinic, and trying to get people to change their behavior is the toughest thing you can do. And that's what the technology people expect to happen, and they're so naive about how the world works. So I think we're in for continuous change, but there will be some new entrants into the teaching and learning business that will fully leverage AI, that will disrupt everything that happens, like Amazon did for the retail
for the
sector.
shopping. So you would have, so your way of seeing things is, we will have, as I don't know, at some point we had Microsoft as the inventor of the Windows, and Apple, which were the first companies, but then that it comes for, say, Google or Facebook, and they changed the whole thing all around.
Yeah.
But the change didn't come from the companies that were already established.
And that's exactly what will happen in education. It will not. We shouldn't look to your university or to any university or college or school system to be truly innovative. They will improve through the use of AI, but it will be a disruptor in the same way that Coursera's team came out of universities, created Coursera, MOOCs, and so on. But none of those are now part of the university system. The universities are using Coursera, edX, FutureLearn, and other MOOC providers.
Duolingo.
To provide their learning platform. And it will be something like that which fully leverages AI for teaching, learning, assessment, and engaged learning outcomes. I think we're going to see disruption from a third party.
Okay. So as a university, as we are, in the case of UNED, we are 45 years old. So it's already quite a mature university, I would say.
From a British point of view, that's pretty young.
Well, yeah, that's a baby in British point of view. But well, for us, it's a mature university. So given that we are a sort of mature university, how should we, taking into account that we have these ideas that want to go to the past, how can we deal with a reality such as this?
Well, I think what you have to do, and this is what I have been doing with various institutions around the world that I've worked with, is you have to find those people that really want to do something different. Don't worry about all this noise about plagiarism and academic misconduct and all the people saying that this will threaten our jobs. Just ignore them. Work with those people that want to do something different and help them do it outstandingly well. And so the more lighthouses we have, the more pockets of innovation we have, the more people will follow. And so what you need is the first mover, the first follower, the second follower, and then you have a movement. So within each institution, We need to find those people and give them anything they want to make things happen. We also have to accept that some things will fail. And if you're not failing, you're not trying. The question becomes, how do we recover from failure? But we need some success stories and recoveries from failure that demonstrate we know what we're doing. And then more people will follow, and then more people will follow. And then all of a sudden you've got a significant movement for change inside the institution. But it's a decade-long journey. You can't transform an organization overnight. And these disruptors that are coming from the outside will accelerate the followership that you get within the institution. So, slowly, you will transform.
But
change.
always kind of giving space to those innovators
Yeah.
and not allowing the structural figures that want to hold the past
Yeah.
to have enough power to stop the development of these groups. That's the clue.
So the MBA I created is a good example. We took our team out of the university. We operated fundamentally outside all of the structures, the registrar structures, the financial structures, the IT structures. We said, we don't want any of that. We want to do something completely different. And that's what we did. And we went from 65 students in year 1 to 1,800 students in year 5. And made a lot of money in doing that for the university. There was a lot of pressure for us to come back in and be controlled. And we said, nope, we're entrepreneurs, we're innovators, and we won't innovate if we have all this structure to deal with. So that's one way, is create a skunk works, what's called a skunk works, working outside the system, owned by the system, but actually being able to do their own thing. So the technology people at the university refused to support the technology we wanted to use. We thought, great, fantastic. The financial system wanted to control it. We said, no, we're going to use this system. The registrar wanted us to use particular. We said, no, we're going to use our own system. And we created a fantastic program which is celebrating its 30th year.
Well, that's a clear path.
Yeah. You have to do things differently, and you have to get out of the structures and constraints to enable true innovation to take place.
We are fearing at the moment with the disruption of AI, all of this discussion of jobs are going to fail. Computers are going to be doing lawyers' work, doctors' work. So what are humans going to do? What does and how we have to train people so that they are ready for that future? So what can you say about that?
Well, let's just stick with education. I do know something about health and about law and what's happening there, but let's just stick with education. What is it we do as teachers? We don't just give knowledge and test to see if the students have got it. If that's all you're doing, goodbye, you're gone. What we do is make a difference to people's lives. And we do it through compassion, empathy, understanding, challenge, pushing, not letting up on a student that's thinking about, quitting. We make a difference because of who we are and because of how we want to relate to these students. And so what we're in is in the relationship business. What we're in is in the engagement business. What we're in is in the compassion business. AI is in none of those businesses. And at the moment has no empathy, no compassion, and is weak on engagement. So as long as we actually understand the difference we make to people's lives and stick at that and say, look, our job is to intensify the engagement between us as instructors and our students to make a difference, not just to their knowledge, but how they live their lives, how they think about themselves, how they think about the world. If we see that as the work, AI will not touch us. Now, we can use AI to help us do some of the stuff that gets in the way, like we have to
the
give
boring things.
boring things like lectures. Who still does that? I don't know. Or assessment, or project management. We can get AI to help with a lot of that work. But I treat my use of AI as my digital assistant. So I used to have 2 full-time assistants. I now have none. Well, except I have a 24/7 assistant. It's called Claude 2, which is a generative AI system much better than ChatGPT. So I have a digital assistant that's available and works with me every day. I've made it into a chatbot so I can just chat with it and say, look, I need to find out these three things by noon. And I get an email saying, here's what you need, Stephen. So I can make use of AI, but there's nothing going to replace me as a leading faculty member making a difference to my students' lives.
So you said, for example, lectures is one of the things that is out, okay?
Why would you do that?
What's the way to relate to students? How are because we are used to relate with the teacher by lectures. That's the problem.
Well, that's a fantasy that many instructors have. But if you actually look at interactions during a lecture, they're very few. Right? So, instructors love to talk. That's what we get paid to do. But it's not a good use of the student's time or my time as a lecturer. So I pre-record 11-minute video slots available on my YouTube channel, and I use class time to really engage with students. I don't instruct, I don't lecture. I set challenges or problems or use games or simulations to really get them to use the knowledge that's in the video material. So I don't need to teach that way. I can use class time to really engage students. And I can use asynchronous learning to really keep that learning going in between any kind of class time that we have. So if you're still lecturing and still setting exams, wake up, it's time to change.
That's a great message. And so we were discussing first AI, then we were thinking about went away.
The way in which we teach and learn, and whether we will lose our jobs because of AI, and the answer is no. But I think one of the things that we should also talk about is, look, we've been teaching online and through distance education for literally 100 years. Distance education started in 1856, really, in London.
London, so it was in London.
At the University of London. Well, actually earlier with Pittman, shorthand teaching in 1827. So we know a lot about how to do distance education, online learning. Well, there's 40 years of research in online learning. And yet we get to the pandemic and everybody says, well, we don't know how to do this. Why is that then? It's because we have not invested in the growth and development, the professional development of our teachers in our universities, colleges, and schools. So we need to do more of connecting the fantastic research we've all been doing for a long, long time, which is full of best practices of instructional design, assessment design, reimagining teaching and learning processes, how to do work-integrated learning well. We know a lot about this stuff, but faculty members don't. We need to, so if you're interested in evidence-based decisions, as a faculty member, you need to know about the research that's been going on for 40 years. And I think it's time to reimagine professional development for our instructors. So one of the things we've been doing is creating 15-minute video segments about how to do various things to connect people to this research. And I think we need to do more of this kind of thing to get people more fully aware of possibilities and get them to be challenged to do better at what they do every day.
Yeah, I think especially when you go, maybe still universities still have a chance, the people still has a few chance of learning and taking times to learn and new things and stuff. But especially if you go to the level of schools or high schools, colleges, teachers just, it's like a big, like a factory, new students, chuck, chuck. So in that environment where they have very little time to think about what they do, how can you begin to do this little work of actually making them think differently?
So one of the things I do is teach school leaders. So I'm working with 30 school leaders right now, and I teach 3 times a year. So I get 150 school leaders every year. And we're getting them to connect to their students more directly and co-creating the learning designs and experience with their students, with their peers, and with us. And so rather than asking our graduate students in this program to write yet another essay that nobody's ever going to read, we say, develop a use case for the application of technology to improve teaching and learning in your classroom, and do so in partnership with your students. What shocked our teachers in schools is that the students are teaching the teachers how to use AI. The students are like 5 years ahead of where the even good teachers are in using technology. And so if you recognize that students are partners in the learning journey as opposed to victims of the learning journey,
Victims.
or clients,
That's a good.
or clients of the learning journey, you can actually transform a classroom or a program of studies very, very quickly. And again, there are lots of examples all over the world of schools doing remarkable things with project-based learning, with learning across the curriculum, with community-based learning, all sorts of new activities. So we can reimagine every single component from kindergarten right through to high school. And the kids will do it for us if we don't do it with them.
They have such an access to resources that they just do things.
Yeah.
They are not asking anything. They don't ask for permission. If you stop them, they just take you out of the game and keep doing their things.
So my family motto is forgiveness is easier to get than permission. So do things, and if somebody says, oh, you shouldn't be doing that, I say, I'm terribly sorry, and carry on. The kids we're working with right now are doing remarkable things with AI. And so I think there's a very optimistic future for our schools, our colleges and universities, but no change quickly. It will be gradual. But I think there's some good signs that the right things are happening.
One of the issues that has been around of what we have been discussing that may help to get people some gamification within their educational process and make it so they can choose what they study is focusing on micro-credentials or badges. How do you see those trends?
Well, we heard a really interesting presentation here at the conference about micro-credentials that were very focused, very structured, modular, stackable, transferable into degrees and diplomas. But in my part of the world, it's a mess. We've just launched a whole load of micro-credentials. Now we're trying to work out what can we do with these. So there's something like, in Ontario alone, 3,500 of these things. So it's a bit of a mess. But I think potentially small learning, boot camps, badges, short courses, really short courses like 6 hours, 10 hours, is the way the system will change. And so I think AI-enabled micro-credentials, both designed by, co-created by AI and us, co-created with students, will be transformed. That will be what will transform the system from the outside in. And you look at what Amazon Web Services, Microsoft, Google are doing with their learning platforms, and that's how they're thinking about the future. So I think there's a couple of mantras I have. One is teach less, learn more. And the other is the future is small. I think those are kind of messages we need to hear.
The future is small.
It's small. It's short, small pieces of learning. Not your 4-year. What the heck is a 4-year degree? Why can't we do that in 16 months? A 4-year. If you look at what a 4-year, because we take all this time out. There's 2 semesters a year. Why? There's 52 weeks in the year. We only teach.
So you think the 4-year degrees and then the masters and then the PhD. So that path is wrong all the way around.
Well, who wants a PhD anymore? I mean, what are they for? I don't get it. And we have large numbers of employers now, including IBM, Apple, Google, McKinsey, the government of the United States, saying you no longer need a degree to work here in a high-skilled job. What we need to know is, what can you do? And that's where badges and micro-credentials will win. And so I think as employers stop using credentials for hiring and start using skills and competencies, we'll see a growth of short, small bits of learning. You will still have PhDs and master's degrees, but they'll be few and far between. I mean, I have both a PhD and an honorary PhD. Nobody's ever asked me what were they about. Nobody, ever.
It's just PhD.
Yeah, I have PhD and a fellow and all this stuff. Nobody ever talks to you about the work you did. It's just, you know, and the idea that this is your entry into the academic profession, still probably appropriate, but it doesn't qualify you to teach. It says you can do research in this box. That's all it is. And so I think the other thing we should do is reimagine the PhD, if it's about the teaching profession, as a teaching certification as well. So I think every university and college instructor should be required to have a teaching qualification.
Yeah, rather than a PhD.
Well, and a PhD if they're in the university world.
Okay, perfect. So I think, we are running out of time then.
Okay.
But maybe like a last message, because this conversation has been so rich, but how can we, what can we fastly do in our daily lives to get ready for that future that is overcoming?
So I suggest the first thing they do is look at teachonline.ca and get some ideas about these issues you and I have just talked about. There's a lot of resources there, some really practical examples. There's a section called Pockets of Innovation where you can read what your colleagues are doing around the world. So find out, research, start looking at the evidence for how you could reimagine your teaching, learning and assessment. And then start playing. At the UNESCO meeting I was at, half the people in the room had very strong opinions about AI, but had never used it. Classic academic behavior. Cut that out. Play, experiment, test, trial, be willing to fail, and work collaborative with your students as co-creators of the learning journey. So that's where I would start. And make it fun for you and for them. Because I think all this stuff is supposed to be fun. So enjoy the journey for change.
Enjoy the journey of change. I think that's the phrase I keep with me, along with many.
Good.
So that was the voice and the presence of Stephen Murgatroyd. A pleasure to have you here.
Yeah, my pleasure too.
And a pleasure to have you here as an audience. So just hold on. In about 5 minutes, we're going to have much more interesting interviews of the keynote speakers and the speakers of the ICDE conference. Thank you very much, and keep on the net.